Okay, let's dive in. You might be facing this task right now, choosing music for a funeral, maybe a memorial service.
Yeah, it's incredibly personal.
And honestly, it can feel pretty overwhelming, right? Where do you even begin to try and capture a whole life with just a few songs?
It really is one of those times where, well, words often just aren't enough.
Hmm.
Music has this amazing way of bringing back memories or offering comfort, sometimes even celebrating the life that was lived.
You're looking for something that really hits home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something that feels, authentic to the person you're honoring and hopefully gives some solace to everyone there.
And that's exactly why we wanted to do this deep dive, looking at the source material you sent over.
Right.
We've got this list, top 15 funeral songs for a meaningful tribute, but also some really useful guidance on the actual process, how you make those choices.
Yeah, the goal isn't just to read out a list. We want to dig into why these songs seem to resonate so much.
Understand the range, the different styles.
The emotions they tap into, and sort of pull out the practical advice from the sources to help you, navigate this when it's already such a tough time.
It's true. Music speaks in a way that nothing else quite does, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So we're going to explore what these sources show us about how we use music for honoring lives, finding comfort, creating that tribute that just feels right.
And it's not just hymns, as you'll see.
No, definitely not. This list goes from like opera to modern pop and even country.
It really paints a picture of, well, the different ways people remember someone today.
Yeah.
The sources suggest these common songs can be a good starting point, whether it's for a, traditional funeral or something maybe more uplifting, a celebration of life.
Or even for things like digital memorials now.
Exactly. That's part of it, too.
Okay, so let's get into this list of 15. First up, a song that I think pretty much everyone recognizes in this context, Amazing Grace.
Classic.
What do the sources say about why this one is just always there?
Well, what they emphasize about Amazing Grace is its lasting power. It's rooted in these big themes, redemption, peace.
Okay.
And because it's so incredibly familiar across different cultures, generations, hearing it can create this sort of shared moment.
Like common ground.
Yeah, a shared moment of calm reflection. It's almost like an anchor, when emotions are all over the place.
That makes a lot of sense. That shared history. Okay, number 2 on the list. Maybe less traditionally thought of for funerals, but wow, it's become huge. Hallelujah.
Ah, yes.
And the sources point specifically to the Jeff Buckley version.
Which is interesting, right? Because there are so many versions of Hallelujah.
True.
But highlighting Buckley's, I think the sources are pointing to its raw emotional weight, that soulful quality.
Okay.
It's apparently chosen quite often, not just for the service itself, but for specific moments like memorial slideshows or maybe candle lighting ceremonies, places where you want that specific intense feeling.
Got it. Okay, now here's a big shift. Number 3 is Israel Kamakawiwo's medley, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. What a wonderful world.
Total change of pace.
Completely different energy from the first 2.
Absolutely. The sources frame this one, the gentle ukulele sound, as really embodying hope and a celebration of beauty, maybe. They note it's picked a lot for, say, outdoor services or services that are deliberately designed to be a bit lighter, more of a celebration of life.
Right.
It's like a conscious choice to offer a contrast to more somber music, focusing on warmth, maybe nostalgia.
Then you also have songs that really capture intense personal grief, like Eric Clapton's Tears in Heaven.
Right. Famously written after such a tragic loss.
Yeah.
And the sources point out that it connects because, well, it taps into grief in such a specific personal way. But the feeling of that loss, that's something almost everyone can relate to on some level.
That combination.
Yeah, that mix makes it powerful for a memorial where you have both individual grief and this sort of collective mourning happening together.
And the list definitely includes modern voices, too. Ed Sheeran's Supermarket Flowers is on there.
Yeah, that's a really poignant contemporary one.
It is.
The sources call out its like raw, relatable emotion. Describing those small, intimate details of loss, it's listed as one of the touching modern options.
Shows how newer artists are still finding ways to express these universal feelings.
Definitely. And for memorials for younger people, the sources mention See You Again, the Wiz Khalifa, and Charlie Puth track.
Right. Often used with video tributes, they said.
Exactly. Which really speaks to that idea of reflecting the person's actual life, their era, their music. And alongside that, you get more uplifting kinds of tributes, too, like Josh Groban's You Raise Me Up.
Oh, yeah. Big voice.
Big voice, big emotion. The sources describe that one as powerful for honoring someone who was like a source of strength and support for others.
Makes sense.
So it fits well, they suggest, maybe in a slideshow looking at their life, their achievements.
The list also goes for the grand scale. Andrea Bocelli and Sarah Brightman, Time to Say Goodbye.
Oh, yeah. That one's singled out for its sheer size, isn't it? Grand, operatic.
Almost cinematic.
Yeah, exactly. The sources suggest it's maybe suited for more formal parts of a service, like a procession, or perhaps the final closing moments.
Designed to leave a big impression.
A powerful, lasting feeling, yeah.
Okay, moving back to something more introspective. Sarah McLachlan's Angel.
Mm-hmm. Another common one.
What's the take on that one?
The sources describe Angel as soft, graceful, meditative.
Okay.
They see it as ideal for those moments that need quiet reflection, maybe a candle ceremony again, or just a period of silent remembrance.
Creating a specific mood.
Yeah, aiming for a gentle atmosphere, letting people process their emotions quietly.
And then, of course, you have the enduring power ballads. Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You.
Absolute classic.
Can't argue with that.
And the sources note it's particularly popular for articulating that deep, lasting love, a heartfelt farewell. Often chosen, they say, when honoring a spouse or a really close partner, someone where that feeling of, irreplaceable connection is key.
Makes sense. Similarly, Bette Midler's Wind Beneath My Wings, another big one.
Timeless track. According to the sources, this one's really about acknowledging that quiet strength.
Right.
The support someone provided, maybe without a lot of fanfare. So it's frequently chosen to honor, like, caregivers, parents.
The foundation people.
Yeah, anyone who was that foundation for others, recognizing their vital role.
Simon Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water offers yet another kind of comfort.
Mm-hmm. That one, the sources present as being centered on comfort, unwavering support.
Okay.
But what's interesting is they mention it gets chosen for both spiritual and non-religious services.
So broader appeal.
Exactly. Highlighting its appeal based on just, human connection rather than specific faith.
The list also digs into some newer tracks, maybe less universally known, like Dancing in the Sky by Danny and Lizzie.
Yeah, the sources identify that as a more recent favorite.
What's the theme there?
It speaks quite tenderly, apparently, about imagining a loved one's experience, after they've passed, in the afterlife.
Okay.
They note it works particularly well when it's part of a visual tribute. They mention something called a memorial portrait video.
Interesting. And bringing in a bit of elegance, shared memory. Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole's duet. Unforgettable.
Oh, lovely choice. Described as elegant, nostalgic.
Yeah.
The sources suggest this duet often finds its place in, like, memorial receptions.
Yeah.
Or maybe within slideshows that look back over a long, full life.
Evokes those warm memories.
Directly, yeah. Shared memories of the person.
And finally, blending genres a bit, Vince Gill's Go Rest High on That Mountain.
Mm-hmm. Country meets spiritual.
Right.
The sources point out that this track connects those country roots with a real sense of spiritual closure, peace. Yeah, a comforting choice. They particularly note it for, say, traditional or maybe more rural memorial services.
Yeah.
Where that specific mix of genre and theme really resonates.
Wow. Okay, looking back at those 15, it really is a diverse collection.
It absolutely is.
Decades, genres, emotional tones all over the map. So beyond just giving us this list, what's the key guidance the sources offer on how someone actually makes this choice?
Right. The absolute core message, really, that comes through from all the sources is personalization.
Okay.
They strongly advise shifting focus away from just what's traditional or what's expected to what tells the story of this specific person, Yeah. Was there a song they absolutely butchered singing along to?
Yeah.
Or a track that just defined a certain time in their life? The advice is really let the music genuinely reflect who they were, their tastes, how they lived.
That's a really helpful shift in perspective. It's not about finding the right funeral song in some objective sense,
Wow.
but finding the song that feels most authentic to them.
Exactly that. And the sources also highlight all the different ways you can use this music now.
Right, not just during the service.
No, it could be during the formal service, sure, but also maybe accompanying a photo slideshow or woven into a digital memorial, some kind of online tribute. They even mention this memorial portrait thing again.
What's that?
It sounds like a sort of private digital space where you can combine photos, stories, and, importantly, that carefully chosen, meaningful music to tell their story.
Interesting how technology is creating new ways, new canvases for remembering people.
It really is.
The sources also gave a little peek behind the curtain, didn't they? Mentioning where this list and advice came from.
Yeah, they cited a few, like Co-op Funeralcare in the UK, Legacy.com,
Okay.
popular Spotify playlists were mentioned, and the Dignity Memorial blog.
That range of sources is actually quite telling, isn't it?
I think so. It suggests this isn't just one person's opinion.
Right?
It seems like an attempt to blend what, large funeral providers are seeing day to day with what's trending online in digital spaces, playlists people create and share.
So trying to capture both timeless choices and what's connecting emotionally right now.
Yeah, aiming for relevance across different types of services and platforms.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Looking across everything, the sources cover the list itself, that crucial advice on making it personal, the different ways to use music. What's the absolute key takeaway for someone who's in this position, facing this difficult decision?
I think the main point is that music is it's an incredibly powerful tool and versatile.
Yeah.
For tribute, for reflection, it's not just background noise, It actively helps capture the essence of a life. And the sources show us there's a really broad spectrum of songs, from the deeply traditional hymns to quite surprisingly modern stuff that can do this job effectively today.
And while a list like the one we discussed is a good place to start, maybe get some ideas,
Definitely a starting point.
the sources keep coming back to the idea that the most meaningful choices, they're always going to be the personal ones.
Absolutely. The songs that genuinely connect with the story of the person you're remembering, their favorite songs maybe, the music that reflects how they actually lived.
Yeah, whether that's in the service itself or a slideshow or one of these digital tributes.
Exactly. The real power comes from picking music that creates an authentic experience, something that truly resonates and honors them.
It leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? When you consider just how diverse that list was. You had solemn hymns, grand opera, heartfelt pop ballads, anthems everyone knows, specific country tunes. What does that variety tell us about all the different ways we process loss today? How we celebrate a life, how we try to create what the source called a meaningful tribute. It really gives you something to think about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As you consider what soundtrack might best tell the story of a unique life.